You ever hear something that just doesn't belong? Like you're standing in your backyard, coffee in hand, birds chirping, wind in the trees, and then, bam, something cuts through it all. That morning it was a scream. Not human, not exactly, but close enough to freeze my spine. I dropped my mug. It shattered on the porch. Didn't care. Grabbed the shotgun and took off toward the woods. I knew these trails. Grew up here. But that sound, it didn't fit. Something young, terrified. And alone. The forest was wet from rain 2 nights ago. Mud sucked at my boots. I moved fast. The dog, Gray, was already ahead of me, nose down, ears up. We followed the sound, and after 5, maybe 10 minutes, we found it. It was curled up beside a rotten log, shaking. A bear cub, tiny thing, maybe the size of a big cat, but covered in muck and blood. His breathing was ragged. There was a gash on its side, deep enough that I saw bone. Looked fresh, hours old. Max. Gray didn't bark. He didn't growl. Just stood there like he understood. And me? I froze. There was no mother in sight. No tracks but the cubs and something heavier. A man's boots. And 1 shotgun shell still warm. Bastards. Someone had shot the mother and left the cub to die. My first instinct was to call someone. Rangers, animal control, hell, even the sheriff. But then I imagined what they'd do. Either shoot it or lock it up in some cage for rehab. And I don't trust those so-called rehabs. Half the time they just let animals die quietly. So I did something real stupid. I took off my flannel, wrapped the cub in it, and carried him out like a baby. Gray walked beside me, sniffing him occasionally but not making a fuss. The cub whimpered a bit but didn't fight me. Maybe he was too weak, or maybe he knew. Back at the house, I set him down on an old dog bed by the stove. It was warm, cleaned the wound with peroxide, which made him yelp so loud Gray whined in response. I stitched it up best I could, shaky hands and all. I'm not a vet. Hell, I'm not even great at patching drywall. But I wasn't gonna let that little thing die alone. He didn't eat that first day. Just slept, twitching like he was still running from something in his dreams. That night I sat up with a flashlight and a shotgun, watching both doors. Bears aren't pets. I knew that. But something about the way Gray curled up next to the cub, like they'd known each other in another life, it got to me. I named him Ash. Don't know why. Maybe because he looked like something burned, trying to come back. Next morning, he opened his eyes and stared right at me. Deep, black eyes. Like looking into a cave where something old was hiding. And I remember thinking, this is either the dumbest thing I've ever done, or the most important. Ash didn't die. That was the first miracle. The second? Gray took to him like he was blood. I expected growling, jealousy, maybe even a snap or two. But none of that happened. From the first day, Gray stayed close to him, like a sentry. When Ash whimpered in his sleep, Gray would nudge him with his nose, then curl tighter beside him. They'd sleep tangled like littermates. Feeding time was messy. Ash didn't know what kibble was, obviously, so I made a kind of mush, goat milk, soaked dog food, eggs, and he licked it up like a starving piglet. Gray always waited, didn't touch his own bowl until Ash was done. That dog had more manners than most people I know. By the end of the first week, Ash could stand without wobbling. He'd waddle after Gray like a duckling. And Gray, he slowed down, matched his steps, led him gently around the yard like a damn babysitter. Sometimes I'd catch them wrestling, well, their version of it. Ash would flop onto Gray's back and gnaw at his ear, and Gray would just lie there, patient as a monk. Let the cub win. The bond wasn't forced. It just happened. Natural. And watching it chipped away at whatever hard shell I'd built around myself. I didn't talk much before. Lived alone since the divorce. Spent most days fixing junk or chopping wood just to stay busy. But now, every hour had a purpose. Every morning, Ash would let out this little grunt when he woke up, and Gray would thump his tail like, "He's alive, boss." A month in, Ash started to grow. Fast. Bears don't mess around when it comes to size. He was still clumsy, still soft in the face, but the paws? Big enough to make dents in the hardwood if he dropped from the couch. Which he did. A lot. I reinforced the fence. Moved sharp tools out of reach. Hid the damn chainsaw. But I didn't lock him up. Not yet. One morning, I found them both outside. Gray lounging in the sun, and Ash lying belly up next to him, paws twitching like he was dreaming. I sat on the steps and just watched. It hit me then. This wasn't temporary. This was family. Somehow, this weird trio had become a pack. I started talking to them, out loud. Full conversations. "You boys hungry? We're out of eggs." "Ash, don't give me that look." Crazy stuff. But it didn't feel crazy. Felt like home. Neighbors didn't know. Not yet. I kept Ash hidden when trucks passed. Didn't post photos. You hear about people getting raided for keeping raccoons. Imagine what they'd do if they saw a bear cub. But in my gut, I thought maybe, just maybe, I could raise him right. With Gray's help. Let him live here until he was big enough to choose. Stay or go. I didn't think about what would happen when he got teeth the size of my fingers. Or claws that could split a door. Back then, I just watched them play and told myself, this might actually work. Ash wasn't a cub anymore. By mid-spring, he was the size of a small couch. Thick muscle under that shaggy coat, paws like frying pans. He still had the same goofy eyes, same clumsy gallop, but the weight behind him, you felt it when he brushed past you, like a furry bulldozer. Gray didn't care. He still played with Ash like always, though the wrestling was now more like full-on tackling. Sometimes I'd hear a crash and run outside, expecting a tree down, only to find Ash sitting on Gray like a throne and Gray wagging his damn tail. But not everyone found it funny. Old Man Jackson saw them once through the fence. Next morning, I got a knock on the door. Sheriff's deputy. Nice enough kid, but nervous. "You keeping wild animals?" I looked him dead in the eye. "Just dogs." He didn't push it. Not then. But the warning was clear. Someone talked. That night, I moved Ash into the back shed. Reinforced the walls. Gave him blankets, old tires, a trough of water. Not a cage, never that, but shelter. Hidden from prying eyes. He didn't fight it. Just looked at me with those black marbles of his. Like, okay, if that's what you need. Broke my heart a little. Gray lay outside the shed door that night. Wouldn't budge. I hated it. Felt like betrayal. Things got tense fast. I stopped bringing Ash out during the day. Walked Gray alone. Every time I passed a neighbor, they watched me too long. One guy even nailed up a sign. Private property armed. Like I was raising a damn monster. Inside, Ash was still Ash. He'd grunt when I brought food. Roll over for belly rubs. Paw at the door when Gray barked. But I saw it, he was restless. He needed space. Trees. Dirt. Movement. Instead, he had walls. One afternoon, I came home to find the shed door open. My stomach dropped. Fence trampled. Shovel knocked over. For a second, I thought he'd snapped. Bolted. But then I heard it rustling in the garden. There he was, belly deep in my tomatoes, chewing like a king. Gray beside him, tail wagging like nothing was wrong. I laughed, out loud, first time in weeks. But I knew that kind of freedom couldn't last. Ash was getting too big, too visible, too dangerous in the eyes of anyone who didn't know him. And no one around here wanted to know him. That night, over a beer, I sat on the porch and watched the shed. Ash sat just outside it, moonlight catching the curve of his back. Gray leaned against him. I whispered, "I don't know how much longer we can pull this off, boys." Ash didn't move. Gray let out a soft woof like he agreed. The peace we'd built was cracking. And deep down, I think we all felt it. I woke up to silence. Not the peaceful kind. The kind that hits you wrong. No birds. No wind. No movement. Just this dead, heavy stillness. Gray wasn't at the foot of the bed like usual. I called his name. Nothing. Panic didn't hit me right away. Just a slow burn. I threw on boots, grabbed a jacket, and stepped outside. The shed door was open. Wide open. I stood there, dumb. Like if I stared long enough, Ash would just be in there, curled up, snoring. But it was empty. Torn blanket, spilled water, a crushed feed bucket. I shouted his name. Louder. Then again. Nothing. Then I heard it scratching behind the woodshed. Gray. He limped toward me, head low, fur caked in mud and burrs. No blood, no wounds. But his eyes, those eyes were wild. He looked like he'd been through hell. I knelt. Where is he? Gray just whined and laid his head on my knee. Something had gone wrong. Ash wouldn't just leave. Not without Gray. Not without me. And Gray wouldn't come back alone unless something scared the shit out of him. I grabbed my flashlight and the old hunting knife I kept for snakes. I hadn't used it in years. My hands were already shaking. The woods behind the house were dark even in daylight. Dense. Wet leaves clung to everything. I checked for tracks. Found some broken brush. Faint paw prints, something big. But after 20 minutes, they vanished. The rest of that day was a blur. I hiked until my legs burned. Called Ash's name until my throat gave out. Left raw chicken and apples near the edge of the trees. Nothing worked. Gray didn't move from the porch. Just watched the tree lean. Didn't eat. Didn't sleep. It was like he was waiting for something. Or morning. I didn't sleep either. That night was worse. Every creak in the floor, every gust of wind. My brain twisted it into growls or heavy footfalls. I kept going to the window like a lunatic, hoping to see that familiar dark shape lumbering home. By morning, I was cracked. Took coffee black and bitter just to feel something. Then I noticed Gray sniffing something by the side of the shed. It was a clump of fur. Not Gray's, coarser, darker, ashes. And beside it, claw marks, deep ones, into the wood, like he'd fought something. My stomach flipped. My brain raced. Had someone taken him? Did he run? Did something worse find him first? Whatever happened, he hadn't left calmly. Or alone. I sat on the porch that morning until the sun was high. No sign of Ash. Just the damn silence again. And Gray, staring at the woods like they owed him answers. Like they owed us both.
If you love stories about wildlife rescue, click the subscribe button below. Here's how the button looks on different devices. Every subscription helps spread these stories and raise awareness. The more people know, the more animals get the help they need. And remember, subscribing is completely free. Click subscribe now and join us in protecting wildlife.
The third day without Ash. I couldn't take it anymore. I packed a flashlight, some jerky, 2 bottles of water, and my old hunting knife. Strapped on my boots, layered up, and told Gray to stay. He whined but didn't follow. Maybe he knew better. I headed straight into the woods. Thick brush grabbed at my legs. The kind of undergrowth that hadn't been cleared in years. Old trails were gone. I made new ones. Sweat clung to me despite the cool air. My flashlight caught the eyes of a rabbit once, and I nearly pissed myself. I followed broken branches, bent grass, claw marks on trees. They weren't fresh, but they were ashes. I knew his patterns. He always rubbed against bark like a cat when he was itchy. Hours passed. I kept moving. Then I smelled it. Blood, rotten iron. My stomach turned. I slowed, crouched low. About 20 feet ahead, in a small clearing, something lay sprawled. First I thought it was a man. Then I saw the tusks. Boar. Dead. Gutted. Flies buzzing. Torn open like paper. Ribs visible. Flesh missing. But no bullet wounds. It wasn't killed by a hunter. This was raw. Primal. I circled it slowly. Checked the ground. Paws. Big ones. Not ashes. Bigger. Deeper imprints. But mixed in were his. And blood trails, thin like something had limped away. He'd been here. Maybe fought. Maybe fed. I didn't know. That's when the shot rang out. Cracked the air like lightning. I dropped flat. Heart hammering. Another shot. Farther off. Then silence. I stayed down for a while. Counting. Breathing. Listening. Someone else was out here. Armed. And they weren't shooting deer. I backed out of the clearing slow, eyes on the trees. My boots slipped in mud. A branch snapped underfoot, loud. Too loud. Something shifted in the distance. Heavy. I froze. But nothing came. I made it back to the trail by dusk. Legs cramping. Shirt soaked. Flashlight flickering. Every shadow looked like teeth. Back at the house, Gray met me at the steps. His nose went to my pant leg. He sniffed, then backed away. Tail low, like he smelled something he didn't like. I sat on the porch, knife still in my hand, staring at the tree line. Ash had been out there, and someone else was hunting. This wasn't just a lost bear. This was a goddamn problem. 2 days after I found the dead boar, I got a knock at the door. It was Jenkins, local farmer, 40-something, sunburnt year-round, always smelled like hay and cigarettes. He didn't say hi. "You hear anything night before last?" he asked. I shook my head. "Why?" "Something tore through my livestock pen, killed 2 goats, dragged one halfway into the woods." My stomach dropped. He looked me dead in the eye. "Wasn't coyotes. Too clean. Too strong." I said nothing, just stood there. "You still got that wild pet of yours?" he added, voice tightening. I bit down. "He's gone." "Gone, huh?" "Disappears right before something tears up my farm." I stepped outside, shut the door behind me. "You accusing me of something, Jenkins?" He took a step closer. "I'm saying if I see that bear on my land, he's going down. No warnings." He left before I could answer. Later that day, a sheriff's cruiser pulled into the driveway. Same deputy from before. Still nervous. "Mind if I ask a few questions?" he said. I didn't answer, just waved him in. We sat on the porch. Gray curled under my chair. He pulled out a notepad. "You said the bear was gone." "He is. But you haven't reported it." "Didn't know I needed to." He nodded slowly, scribbled something. "Any idea where he went?" "No." "You sure?" I gave him a long look. "He's not tagged. No collar. You think he's got a GPS?" He smiled tight. "Neighbors are nervous. That farmer Jenkins says it looked like a bear attack." "Jenkins says a lot of things." He closed the notebook. "Listen, if we find that bear and he's acting aggressive or even just too close to people, we'll have to put him down. You understand that, right?" I didn't answer. He took it as a yes. After he left, I sat there for a long time. Gray pressed close against my leg. Everything inside me was tangled. Fear, rage, guilt. What if it was Ash? What if hunger or pain had pushed him too far? But I couldn't believe it. Not the Ash I knew. Not the one who let Gray chew his ears and waited to eat until he was told. Still, truth didn't matter now. Perception did. They thought he was a threat, and threats get put down. I went inside and pulled the rifle from the back closet. Not to use on him, but because I had the sick feeling someone else might try. And I'd be damned if I let them get to him first. 3 weeks. That's how long it had been since I last saw Ash. I checked the woods every day, walked the same trails, left scraps and raw meat out near the tree line. Nothing. Not a paw print. Not a broken branch. Gray stopped sleeping indoors. He'd sit at the edge of the woods for hours, tail still, ears twitching at every crack and rustle, like he was waiting for a ghost. I was starting to think we'd never see him again. Then, one evening just before dusk, Gray perked up. He didn't bark, didn't growl, just stood up and stared. I followed his gaze, and there he was, standing at the edge of the clearing like a statue, not moving, not blinking, just watching. He looked bigger, dirtier, a gash along his shoulder, healing but raw, fur matted in places. But he was alive. I stepped forward, slow. My throat tightened. "Ash!" He didn't run, didn't come closer either. Behind him, something shifted. At first I thought it was a bush. Then it lifted its head. A wolf, smaller than Ash, but not by much. Mangy, one leg clearly wounded, dragging. His eyes were wild, sharp, but it didn't snarl. It was hurt, and it was with him. Ash turned his head slightly, just enough to glance at it, then looked back at me. He hadn't come for help. He was making sure I saw. Gray whined, took a step forward, tail wagging slow. Ash made a low grunt, not aggressive, more like a warning, protective. I stood there frozen. My heart was pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. This wasn't the cub I raised. This was something else now, wilder, older, changed. But then he did something that shattered me. He stepped to the side, let the wolf lean against him, like a crutch, and together they turned, back into the woods. Not running, not hiding, just walking away. Gray let out a soft, confused bark. I put my hand on his back. "Let him go," I whispered. That night I couldn't sleep, not because I was afraid, because I finally understood. Ash hadn't attacked those goats. He'd been protecting something, or someone, and I'd been too human to see it. Whatever happened out there, whatever he went through, he wasn't just surviving. He was choosing where to be, who to stand by, and he wasn't choosing us. Not anymore. A week passed after that night. Every day, I walked to the edge of the woods, not to call him, just to stand, just in case. But Ash didn't come back. Gray stopped watching the trees. He still listened, but it was different now, like he knew the chapter had closed. So did I. One morning, I took down the old shed door, burned the feed buckets, tossed the chewed tires. I kept the dog bed, though, cleaned it, folded it, stored it in the attic like a relic. I told myself it was over. Then, exactly 7 nights after the last time I saw him, I heard a thud on the porch. It was past midnight. Gray growled low, not angry, just alert. I grabbed the rifle and stepped outside. There, on the porch in the moonlight, a boar, big, dead, still warm, laid neatly at the top step like an offering. No blood trail, no signs of a struggle. I scanned the trees, heart racing. Gray stood beside me, tense. I didn't see him, but I felt him, watching. I stepped forward, set the rifle down, and whispered, "Thank you." Silence. Then a soft crack like a branch under weight. Then nothing. He was gone. Gone for good. I left the boar where it was till morning. Let the world see it. Let anyone with a grudge wonder what else might be watching from the shadows. After that, I stopped waiting. Ash had made his choice. Not out of anger. Not fear. Just instinct. He belonged to the wild now. Some nights, when the wind's just right, I swear I can smell him. Wet fur and pine. Gray lifts his head sometimes too. Maybe he smells it too. Maybe not. But we both feel it. That something passed through our lives and left a mark we'll never scrub clean. I still get questions now and then. Whatever happened to that bear? I just say, he went home. And if they push further, I change the subject. Because how do you explain a bond like that? He was never mine. Not really. Not after the woods got in his blood. But for a while, we were something to each other. And maybe that's enough. Maybe that's what love looks like. When it wears fur and teeth. And walks away.